Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lyra podcast, the podcast that does deep dives into the best, worst and middest of comic books, graphic novels and sometimes mangas. I'm your host, the soon-to-be-known as Comic Stan, and with me as always is my competitive co-host, it's Jamie.
I think this is going to be a real slam dunk of an episode, Ryan.
I don't know why you would say that, that just comes out of nowhere. I'm offended that you would, I don't know, I was trying to go like very anti your product placement of the title.
Dude, I'm shooting for a three-pointer from half court to half court here.
I'm LeBron James.
I've got my Air Jordans on. I've exhausted everything I know about basketball.
Throw me the rock. That's all I've got.
And then I just pick Dwayne Johnson up from my cupboard where I keep him.
Dwayne Johnson, is he basketball?
No, but he's The Rock.
Oh, he is The Rock, yes. Oh, I thought we were still doing basketball stuff.
Well, I mean, you took it to a different place.
The fear is that I think our tangents go like basketball, pass me The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, wrestling, Hulk Hogan. That time he was really racist. Wait, what were we talking about? Back to the comic.
Oh, mate, you can't back to the comicus.
We haven't got into the comic yet. That's fair enough.
This is the fucking back to the intro.
Back to the intro. I was going to start this one with a little bit of news that I thought you might find very interesting.
Is it about Alan Moore?
No, for once.
Well, then I don't care. Obviously, I don't care.
You will care. I think you'll care. There was a recent casting announcement for a comic book movie that's coming out soon.
Is it the Human Target? Is it the Human Target?
No, but it might relate.
Is it John Hamm?
No, it's...
Well, if it's not John Hamm or the Human Target, why would I care?
For those listening, you are hearing a live-action ADHD interaction.
Let's go ride bikes.
Exactly. So there was a casting announcement from DCU for the Supergirl role.
Yeah.
Which is, it's actually the girl from House of the Dragon, Millie Alcock. Who
don't know who that is.
Have you seen House of the Dragon?
Nope.
I'm surprised because you're a big Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah, but I'm just waiting for the next book, you know? So
you're never going to watch it?
Well, I read...
It's not coming out.
I read Fire and Blood, didn't I?
Okay.
Which is the book that the House of the Dragon's based off of.
Right.
And the book is so fantastic.
TV show is pretty good as well.
I didn't want Benioff to ruin it for me.
It's not Benioff, it's different people.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the fans would not have accepted those two doing anything else.
I do like Matt Smith.
Yeah, he's good in it. So it's worth watching.
He's good at everything.
Yes. But the reason I'm bringing this up is she's being cast as Supergirl in DCU. And the reason But the reason that's important is because this is the Supergirl that's apparently going to be very closely, if not almost directly based off the Tom King Woman of Tomorrow comic series.
Oh, sick.
And
cool.
Because Tom King is being apparently quite involved in the next DCU film slate coming out, that's why we're one step closer to live-action Human Target, hopefully starring John Hamm.
It can only be John. I'm rewatching Mad Men at the moment. It can only be John Hamm.
He basically is that character.
He would be so perfect for it.
Yeah. And did you have a comment to read out or something akin to that?
Yes. So we have been telling our listeners for a while that we don't care how rude our 5-star comments are as long as they're 5 stars. And so one of our listeners, hello if you're listening, thank you so much for the comment. I really enjoyed it. I'm filibustering my own podcast here while I get it up.
I can just remove the silence if you want.
No, don't do that. It's more fun this way. It's jazz. Are you ready for the comment?
I'm gripping my seat.
How dare you say anything with Logan and Predator is mid. Pair of dumbasses who wouldn't know culture if it slaps you in the face. Now, there's a couple of things with this comment. I'm a fan of the use of all caps to denote that you are shouting.
It's one of the few ways to get a tone across over text.
But this person used all caps just for the and, so it implies that's why I shouted just the and.
So if it was just Wolverine by himself or Predator by themselves, he wouldn't care. But because it's both of them and we call them mid, that he took extreme umbrage with that.
Well, that's the only way that this comment can be read linguistically.
Yeah, of course.
Also, the very last clause, if you will, the very last clause of this utterance is wouldn't know culture if it slapped you in the face, which implies that collectively we only have one face.
Yeah, but or is he saying like a standing next to each other kind of? Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, but there's only one face being slapped here.
Or is it a comment that's just generally directed to both of us? So but as individuals.
Even so, if you were directing it to both of us at the same time, you would pluralize faces.
That's only, you're assuming that the person writing is doing everything grammatically correct, which in this day and age is unfortunately not the case.
Well, either way, I'd just like to note that whilst I did find this comment highly amusing, there were some grammatical issues with it.
Much like there were some narrative and story issues with the Predator versus Wolverine comic.
Exactly. There's a reason that is wallowing in midhood.
Midhood. Is that like, it's Midgard?
Yeah, it's a place that all the comics that we've deemed to be mid go, and so they just all achieve midhood.
Yeah.
And
they reside in Midgard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the human world.
Yeah, which
just
is
looking up.
Which is at best mid, based on current affairs and situations.
I mean, do you know what? If Britain could be mid right now, I'd be thrilled.
That'd be good. That's a political slogan of like, let's get back to mid.
Yeah,
that's the British equivalent of like, make America great again. It's like we're not like outlandishly thinking we're going to be great again. Like, let's just aim for mid again, and we'll work from there.
Underage children aren't even going to be able to buy vapes in Britain soon. How sad is that?
Yeah. I feel like the MAGA phrase, as horrifically contextual as it is, based on everything it's related to, that would have done a lot better in England, I feel like, because we literally, you could say, let's make Great Britain great again.
Or let's
something.
make Britain great again.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I work in a pub part-time.
I'm aware.
In fact, I've served you.
Yes.
One of my locals...
I put my card in your face.
You did. You fucking did. I nearly bit it off. One of my locals came in the other day and he sat down and he's a pint drinker, right? Like, he sits at the bar and when his glass gets to like a quarter, I go, do you want another, mate? And I'm already pouring him another beer because the guy likes his beer. Right. No shame here. I work in a pub. That's what it's for.
You go to a pub and you like beer?
Yeah.
Get out.
But he sat down and I was maybe halfway through pouring him a pint of his regular. And he went, oh, no, sorry, can I get a bottle of the low alcohol ghost shit, please? I was like, oh, are you not drinking at the moment? And he went, no. And then I looked up and saw he was wearing a fucking MAGA hat. And I was like, the fuck are you doing wearing that? But firstly, it's what, like an 8-year out-of-date reference at this point?
I mean, the unfortunate truth is it does seem to be going strength to strength. That's the problem.
Yeah. But I was like, you're not American. We're in a very liberal part of a quite liberal city. I preferred you when you were drunk. Like, if this is what being sober does to you, matey, you need to start drinking again forthwith.
And he wasn't losing a bet or something like that?
He just kept smirking at me. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
He knew that
So it was ironic.
I don't... do you know what? It was a busy Saturday night, and so I wasn't able to get into it with him to the level that I would have liked to have done.
Everyone stop.
Yeah,
we need to address
everyone
this.
Stop drinking. The record scratches. I was there last night, and one of my friends came in who's like, he fucking writes for, he's the art editor for an electronic music magazine. And he got really upset that I was playing the Smiths because he doesn't like Morrissey. And so I put some craft work on, and he was like, oh, you need to try out this krautrock band, New? Spell NEU exclamation mark. And I was like, yeah, dope, we'll put some on. And the first track on this album was super like standard krautrock stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty good fun. But then it became like this weird experimental noise music where it was just silence for like 20 seconds and it'd be a bunch of beeps and boops. But by this point I was line cleaning. So I was in the back room of the pub, like putting fucking pipes in buckets of line cleaner and shit for my boss. And I came back in and there was 5 baffled old men just looking up at the speakers like, what the fuck is going on?
And that would have been from their... No, Kraftwerk would have been from their kind of generation, wouldn't it? So it would have been that far off.
I put on Trans-Europe Express, which came out in like 1977.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, if you're cool and middle-aged, you know who Kraftwerk are.
And speaking of cool, back to the basketball, which we both know lots about, as we've established.
And basketball's very cool.
Basketball is cool. It's probably why we never got into it.
There's a reason... Looking at you and I, there's a reason that we didn't get into basketball, Ryan. And it's because neither of us stand over 5'10".
Yeah, but not the fans aren't all tall. Like that I've discovered.
Have you done some research?
I looked into it and it was like, turns out there's no height requirement for being a fan of it. So, and I looked at that and I went, I'm still not into it though.
I really like the idea that when you buy an NBA ticket, you have to go for one of those, are you tall enough
Are
things.
you this tall to see the game or something. No, my closest experience of basketball was watching the Last Dance documentary, which is very good. For someone who's not into it at all, I found it quite entertaining.
The Last Dance documentary?
So it's a documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Basically, they won a shitload of...
like 95 through about 99, right?
Yeah, like, I don't know if those are the exact years, but around that kind of time.
Not mid-90s to early noughties, the Chicago Bulls just won everything, didn't they?
Yeah, and they won a very specific thing. Basketball fans are going to kill me. I don't think we have any listening, but if you are a basketball fan listening, I'm sorry. I don't know what the main thing is, the NBA big thing is, but it's the Super Bowl of the basketball, if that means anything at all. But they won a bunch of those, and it was kind of like looking at not just Michael Jordan, but the rest of the team as Pippen and... can't remember his name, but he's the really weird guy who was actually did some stuff with wrestling back in the day as well.
Really?
I can't remember his name. He was the guy who was with Madonna for a bit. The dyed hair. God, that's going to bug me.
Guy Ritchie.
Whatever, sure. But how they all... the things
That's a deep cut.
The things that came together that made them win. But it was interesting seeing how that kind of journey progressed and stuff. It's interesting, I think, seeing any time... you've got people being the best, and Michael Jordan is considered like the best of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's him, LeBron, or Kobe, isn't it?
I think most fans would argue it's still him, and maybe there's like some statistics where, well, actually Kobe did this or LeBron did this, or whatever. But I think like in terms of just fame, like it's Michael Jordan. Recently,
and this is a tangent, I was going through some old stuff, and I found my Mega Drive collection, and I realized why I have such a soft spot for Shaq. And I've completely forgotten I'd had this. But at some point in the mid-90s, somebody in my family bought me a copy of Shaq Fu for the Sega Mega Drive, which is the Shaq licensed fighting game. And ironically, the cartridge genuinely is twice the size of any other Sega Mega Drive cartridge, for a reason that I've not been able to discern.
Surely marketing.
Well, it's just hench. It is just an absolute unit of a Mega Drive cartridge.
If any game was going to be, it was going to be that or Shadow of the Colossus.
But for my 32nd birthday, Ryan, I just want to get everyone around here and get drunk and have a Shaq Fu tournament. I think that's what I want.
Fair enough. I mean, there's video game places that you could maybe facilitate something like that, but anyway, back to the basketball.
I still have a Mega Drive. We can do it right now. Should we do that right now instead of recording a podcast?
Bin off the podcast, yeah. Start a gaming channel where it's just us playing Shaq Fu. Only that ever.
One of my friends, I'm going to plug it... Well, no, he doesn't stream anymore. But for the longest time, one of my friends exclusively streamed... He listens as well. He exclusively streamed Garfield Kart, which is bad.
Are you telling me Garfield Kart never took off as a video game?
It's certainly not a viable alternative to Mario Kart, no.
No, that was Crash Team Racing. So, back to the comic, or should I say back to the manga this time, because this is one of our few manga episodes.
And this is also our first ever sports manga, which is like a whole subgenre.
Yeah, we're going to be very clueless. It might be a short episode because we just don't have as much meaningful related bits to give.
So, I'm going to do the preamble today, because this is a title that I insisted that we cover.
Sure.
So, Slam Dunk is a sports manga. It was written and illustrated by Takehiko Inoue. That is absolutely mispronounced, so if anyone would like to correct me on that, please write in.
It's probably what I would have gone with, looking at the reading.
Yeah, so it was serialized in Shonen Manga, which is a weekly shonen magazine, so it was in Shonen Jump.
Mm-hmm.
Started in 1990, and then it carried on in that form to 96, with 31 original chapters, and it's still ongoing. They're into about 270 chapters now. So this manga is written by a prolific manga artist.
Yeah.
He went on to do a follow-up about wheelchair basketball, which we are absolutely going to cover.
Yep.
And he also did a sort of biographical manga about possibly fictional, possibly mythological, definitely kind of existed Shogun-era samurai called Musashi.
Is the title called Vagabond?
Yes.
Right.
And Vagabond is really highly regarded. It's one of those that I really wanted to do something by this guy because he's so prolific and his art is so magnificent. I just feel like we had to cover something he'd written.
Yep.
The reason I didn't suggest Musashi off the bat is because it's a real slow burn. So you're looking at 100 chapters before it really picks up.
Yeah. And think that's going to be something that I've noticed here with mangas generally.
Yeah.
The idea that it does take longer to get into the story. And you can argue that, like, oh, you need to get to this point before it kind of hits its stride. Or so, like, I've recommended things in that same vein. But I also think you need to get something from that build-up as well. And so we're only covering the first 9 chapters, which is the first book. Like, it's the first book, but it's split up into the chapters. And we'll get into the proper, like, story and stuff. I could tell that it's like the slow beginning of a whole story.
Starting with the arting, though. This is the thing that I have to say about manga, is that these things are generally written and drawn by one person for a weekly release, and you have to admit the art is fantastic.
So I was going to actually slightly counter on that point. So mainly because
what is your problem with this art?
Not a problem with the art. The problem specifically with the point you're making, right? And I'm not like disagreeing, but I'm just kind of countering with something else to be considered. So you made a TikTok on our Comic Literate TikTok channel, basically highlighting exactly that. You took a great bit of art and you said, "Look at this by this guy who only wrote it and drew the art himself for years and years and years, right?" And that bit of art was absolutely worthy of the praise that you gave it, and the praise this guy is known for, this writer and this artist. But my thing was, when reading this, and this is a common thing with manga, I think there are specific points where the art really like takes center stage. It's a great bit of drawing, but then what you see in the kind of page to page and panel to panel is then I thought there was a lot of shortcuts to get it done quicker. So there's a lot of panels where it's just the people and there's no background, and the people are drawn more simply in certain panels.
Well, so this guy does a lot of really small inset panels where he will really simplify the art, because the idea is you're looking at it from far away.
Yeah.
But compare this to a lot of Marvel and DC stuff, which, by the way, has a monthly release and entire teams working on it.
So typically
leagues
you only get
above. It's leagues above the stuff you see in Western comics.
I think parts of it are. And one thing that's also important to remember here, because I checked the timeline of this as well.
Yeah.
This guy, this was his first kind of major thing. So he started Slam Dunk when he was 23. And then Vagabond, which I saw is actually more praised for its art than this title.
And Vagabond, have you looked at some of the art for Vagabond?
I saw some of the stuff Vagabond is absolutely worthy of the praise. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with like the premise of what this and other manga artists have achieved, but what I do think is worth noting is, you see the teams behind like the Marvel and DC stuff, and again, Marvel and DC stuff churn out a lot of mid stuff, like no denying that at all. But I do think with most Marvel and DC stuff, there is more per panel, and I think that the fact that they have a couple of extra people working on it, I think it kind of balances out. And this is all I was seeing with Slam Dunk, was like there's some great big kind of splash panels, great art, like great body and muscular detail and things like that.
The anatomy is flawless.
Exactly. But then you have quite a few pages in between those of more simplified stuff. And I'm not having a go. I'm not saying like this is why it's bad or this is why he shouldn't be praised. What I think is, as you point out, because it's one writer, one person writing and doing the art, I think they have to take these kind of shortcuts to churn the stuff out. And I think they are choosing when and where to do this. They are explicitly doing it when it's just like a simple conversation, or it's a bit of like a comedic part. So it's more like, it's like a Looney Tunes-esque, like, oh, they're fighting, but there's a cloud covering, or you know what I mean? Like, oh, a punch happened, but you didn't see the punch, but you just see the person knocked out afterwards. I think to get this kind of thing produced by one person, they have to take these kind of shortcuts. So
did you like the art then?
I like the artwork, like, so I stopped and admired those big splash panels. But I also then, when going through the bits in between, I was kind of like, well, this is manga based, like quicker drawing. If that makes sense.
I thought it was beautiful the whole way through.
I thought, see, that's the thing. I thought parts of it were beautiful. But
I really enjoyed the moments where he simplified his art style as well, for like a zoom out panel, or for a moment where a character was saying something a bit silly and it was an aside that was kind of meant for the reader, because that's an anime thing.
Yeah.
Or a manga thing that is carried over into anime. Think about Ash Ketchum going, oh boy.
Yeah.
And And I really thought that was pulling a lot of weight for the story, but just the sense of anatomy, like the panel that I put on TikTok is a much later panel. It's from way, way beyond anything we're going to be talking about today. But it's somebody hanging from a basketball hoop. And just the sense of anatomy there is flawless. And often when I look at Western comic book art at the moment, the anatomy's not there. The faces aren't there. Like, it's just not there. Even though they're pulling more weight with like the backgrounds and stuff. Like the bread and butter, actually, how good is this drawing? Often the drawing isn't very good. Whereas here, even when he simplified it, everything was in proportion. Everything looked right. Everything looked good.
I think the best way for me to describe it is the way I kind of experienced this was the highs were absolutely higher than your typical Western comic book. But then the stuff in the middle, and I'm again not saying it's worse. Like when you can tell when Marvel and DC are doing the panels that they don't really, nothing important's happening. They don't care about as much. They're kind of palming off a bit in between for the similar reasons. But I think with manga, and not specifically this artist, I think manga generally, they do oversimplify, and for me it just gets a little instead of like the great looking art, I think they're relying on like the comedic kind of looks and parts. And then even when it's not comedic, sometimes it's just very simple. And again, I don't think that's specific to this artist. I think if anything, the fact that this came out, this was his first major one, and he did it when he's 23. I think he very intentionally stuck to the established manga style.
Yeah.
And I think so I'm not putting on this art specifically. I think manga generally, because it's normally one creator.
And this is very much a shonen manga.
Exactly, yeah. But again, that's my issue and maybe the color thing might be an aspect for me personally as well, where if I'm looking at mid-Marvel stuff or DC stuff, at least I have kind of some color and stuff that's still a bit interesting.
See, I love black and grey, don't I?
You've
seen my arms.
Yeah, I like black and grey when it's the great panels and the great art. But when it's oversimplified when you've got the color, for me, I'm like, well, at least we've got this color to look at and there's some interesting stuff, even if it's simplified.
I mean, some of my favorite comic books of all time are in black and grey.
Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, Mouse, I really like black and grey illustration.
Mouse is a great comparison because in those panels, the quieter moments, or like the modern day stuff where they're just talking over a kitchen table, I found that stuff, I think, better than the in-between stuff in manga.
Yeah,
because that was more detailed and still, as you say, very in proportion, and you can see what's going on and stuff. I also had slight issues with the character models were very distinctive. You could almost always tell who was who.
Yeah.
But what I did find was there's some little overlooks of like if a character wasn't a main character, it was a lot harder to distinguish.
There's a lot
others.
Of background characters here. In the same way that I suppose a really popular entry point for Westerners and anime or manga is Pokemon.
Yeah.
You're not super into anime and manga, you've probably consumed a few episodes of the Pokemon anime when you were a kid. You think about the background characters there, they're often super low frame rate, really non-distinct. They're the same characters every time, but they're not very distinct.
Yeah.
Very much a trope of like ensemble manga.
Yeah. But so this one I found a particularly egregious example. So he's got his 4 friends, which we'll get into in a bit. But he's got his 4 friends, and they, to themselves, are all very distinguishable. The problem is one of those friends looks like the main character. And again, when it's properly detailed, you can very much tell the main character he's much taller than this lookalike friend. But when it zooms out a bit, and you've got them in a group, I literally had to look at points and go, I had to stop and kind of distinguish which one is the one that looks like the main character and which one's the main character. So, and that's one little particular example that got me a bit. There's other points where I didn't know who was talking to who, and I think that again is a manga thing. I said this on the previous.
Please tell me you were reading it right to left.
Yes,
because the
story didn't make any sense.
Things were happening in reverse.
I'm trying to think of it. He left the basketball team, and now he's fighting someone, and now he wishes he was in the basketball team, but.
For anybody who is completely unfamiliar with manga, when you read manga, you read it back to front, right to left.
Yeah.
So you start with a manga, with a volume of manga. It's the shape and size of a paperback book, as opposed to being the shape and size of a comic book. And you start when you have it in your hand with all the pages on the left.
Yeah.
and you read backwards, essentially.
Yeah, but there were points where I was looking at a panel going, who was saying this? Because a lot of times when there was a overemphasized, like shouting or just exclamation, it would be in a, not a speech bubble, but be in a speech like pow sign, you know, like like the old Batman, like pow, wham, you know, and all that. It'd be in one of those. And because it's that shape and it didn't have a clear speech direction or line, I was like, well, who's saying that? And I kind of contextually had to work out. And again, not impossible. Like, I'm not saying it ruined it for me or anything, but I feel like it took me out a little bit when I had to stop the stream of reading and go, hang on, who said that? And like take a beat to work that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, that's a manga thing. And this is what I was going to say was, it's a problem I constantly have with mangas is I'm reading them going, I don't know if this is bad. I don't know if it's a failure on the text or if it's just the style and I'm not used to it. I said the exact same thing.
Which I think is why we need to expose ourselves to a lot more of it.
Yeah, but I think it's because it's more I am rooted in what I grew up with and have experienced for most of my life.
You're super into DC and Marvel.
Well, just Western comics is probably the all-encompassing way to say it. And then mangas just have these different ways of doing things. And I've mentioned issues before of like how they depict things in ways and how I feel like some parts of manga are so far away from realism. And then, but then I'm like, well, I'm not calling out Looney Tunes for not being realistic.
You like comic books about people who fly.
Exactly. But in the sense of like, I'm used to I know in Western comics when it's meant to be realistic and when it's not. And then you've got titles like this where you have, again, incredibly detailed anatomy and things like that. But then you've got a character going like, I must join the basketball team. Like, just say, like, talking that way in front of everyone.
We've talked about this. This is just Japanese as translated into English, isn't it?
And that is something I was very aware of going through this as well. Like,
it's very typical of the Japanese character, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think I can criticize the dialogue explicitly for exactly that reason, because I don't know if this is good dialogue or bad dialogue.
Well, the dialogue feels quite weighty, doesn't it? Like, you kind of plod through it a little bit. But I think that's because Japanese is this very formal language, and it's being translated quite, how do you put it? Being translated quite authentically into English.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, you know, I think sometimes when you're reading this stuff, I would have liked it to have been translated into more colloquial English. But then again, I think the ideas, you know, the way the characters emote and think wouldn't necessarily translate that well if it was translated into more colloquial English, because then of course you're losing some of that character.
Yeah.
And you know, Japan's one of those countries that does still really have a national character because they were so insular for so long, and it's, you know, a tiny island, blah 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 blah. Like they've been less affected by the scourge of the proliferation of American culture, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah, in more recent years, absolutely. I think with the art, generally, I think it's good where it needs to be good. And that is far better than if it was bad all the way through, like by miles. I think this guy being a sports fan before he even started Slam Dunk, I think he went into it with like the idea of doing these amazing, realistic looking mid sports photograph capture kind of images. And especially like anytime they're playing or any kind of physical thing is going on, it's especially great.
Yeah.
I think when we picked this up, when you suggested to do this and you said, this guy's one of the best manga artists of all time, let's do a title of his. I think in feeding that notion, this was not the best one to do, but I know why we did it. But this is like him like doing a bit of the stuff that he would become famous for. But this is like still within the confines of like, well, you're doing a manga, you better do it the manga way.
I mean, it's a Shonen Jump weekly release, isn't
exactly.
it? You know, like it is sort of tethered into that culture. These are comic books for kids.
Yeah. And also, in terms of character depiction, one of his mates has a mustache.
He does.
What age are they meant to be?
Well, there's one thing that I really want to get into up top. Trigger warning racism.
Right.
So there is a character who is black-coded. There is a character who, to my eyes, looks he looks black, is the only way to describe it. I mean,
like
he has
a stereotypical depiction.
Yeah. It's the captain of the basketball team.
Really?
Yeah. Do you not think?
I didn't get that, no. I don't know if I just missed it, but I didn't get that.
I'm just going to show you with that in mind, I'm just going to show you some images of him really quickly.
Sure.
And then we can get into it, because I'm happy to be wrong here, but I really felt that was it. Where did he come in? It was about issue 5 or 6, wasn't it?
Chapter 2 or 3, I think.
Tell me that isn't a black man.
Only now because he's showing it because of the hair. But that's... Yeah, I think literally only because of the hair and because of the time, it being the 90s. But in terms of everything else about him, I think he looks like every other character. If anything, this might sound bad. I think I expected a worse or a more racist depiction if they were going to put
so
black
potentially
character.
He isn't black. I mean, it's so hard to know because they've not inked up his skin tone. But just, when I was reading through, to me, he looked...
I think it could be. I think it could literally be the artist copying a hairstyle from a basketball player.
Yeah, potentially.
Rather than making an explicitly black character.
But when I was reading it as him being black, and then he was incessantly and consistently referred to as a gorilla. And I was reading that going, fuck, that's not cool. And, this is like 90s Japan. Japanese culture is notoriously racist.
100%.
Black and European people living in Japan face a lot of very low-level casual racism.
Yeah, I've heard that in through Japanese pro wrestling. It's if you're not Japanese, if you in Tokyo or any big touristy place like that, you're probably fine. As soon as you go out of Tokyo, it's like you're not being let into bars and clubs, and I heard stories of wrestlers who would only be let in once they showed that they could speak fluent Japanese. Like only then they were like, fine, I guess we'll let you in, kind of thing.
But for reference,
and that's recent, so 90s is way worse.
This guy has the very kind of
a high top fade.
Yeah, he has a high top fade, which is, I mean, really, it's a hairstyle you can only maintain if you've got afro hair. Like,
I do not know, but
well, think if your hair was long enough to stand up 6 inches and you had a fade on the sides, it would flop down, wouldn't it?
Again, I do not know enough about hair to say one way or the other.
A high top fade, like a high top fade, is a hairstyle you can only have if you have an afro,
right?
And you have to have a real dense curl pattern to have that,
right?
Like you're talking like a 4B or a 4C curl pattern, and they are literally taking a big afro and then like a fucking topiary, you would shape it into your high top fade. Like that is a black hairstyle. That is not a hairstyle that either of our hair would be able to carry.
And this is what makes me think. The pure speculation, I think the creator probably saw that hairstyle on a basketball player, maybe one they were a big fan of, and just put it on one of their characters.
And it's a hairstyle that was super popular in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. There's a particular group I heard on a podcast. I think it's like Kid and Play or something like that. But there's like some group where one of the people had that hairstyle,
and like DJ Jazzy Jeff was known to wear this hairstyle. Like a lot of prominent black sportsmen in the 90s would wear it.
Will Smith back in the day,
Will Smith tended to have a lower fade,
right?
Like he tended to just have a really tight fade, didn't he?
But
even I suppose first season of Fresh Prince, he kind of had a high top fade.
Maybe in his like prime rap.
Yeah.
Before Fresh Prince.
I think it's fairly safe to say that this hairstyle was popular among Black Panthers and, big advocates for black rights, because it's a hairstyle that's so unique to that community because, again, like just the sheer genetic factors of being able to have it.
The physics of it.
Yeah, like you need a tight curl pattern. You need a really tight curl pattern to have this haircut.
Yeah.
And so on some level, he has black coded this character, even if he hasn't given him really prominent African American features. And you didn't read it that way. I did. So there's clearly some room for interpretation here.
Yeah, I'm at the level where even after you've pointed out, I'm hoping it was unintentional.
Yeah, but on some level, he has black coded this character, and then he has his primary character call him a gorilla throughout the comic book, and I was reading it wincing at points because I was like, that's just not okay.
Yeah, that's the problem is if you make the connection, it immediately sours the book for you, because I didn't have that and I didn't notice it, but now that you've pointed it out, I feel like if I go back and read it and that happens again, that's all I'm going to be thinking of now. So it's definitely something that could be unfortunately of its time and could ruin it for modern readers. Absolutely. Yeah,
totally. And again, I think now, having had your perspective on this guy and having really looked at his face,
because this is I just saw the same face on the characters. I thought you were going to mention one of the bad guys, henchmen, you know what I mean? Like the one of the popular kids, the ones who try and beat up the other kid at the beginning. I thought it was going to be one of them. But then you don't see that much of them. So that's why it's maybe wasn't as obvious.
Yeah, but that one character for me just really stuck out. Again, it's probably just the high top fade. It's probably just because I know a bit about natural hair.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine there are many white people who would know what like a 4B or a 4C curl pattern are.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so seeing that haircut, I instantly went, well, that's an afro haircut. You're only going to get that on somebody with an afro.
Yeah.
And they're calling that same person a gorilla. And I was like, that just doesn't ring right to me.
Yeah. So because of my ambivalence of all that, I was more focused on the character who had the mustache. Because I was like, what age? Because they're meant to be first year high school. So for like us in England, that's 12, 13, right? So
maybe a bit older.
But for them to have a whole proper mustache, like...
I mean, you're going to have to bleep this out, but that we went to school with.
Yeah, but like...
That geezer had a full-ass beard at about 13.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon, but again, the mustache just, it seemed very odd.
He grew a better beard than most of our teachers. Like, I feel like teenage boys have bum fluff mustaches.
Prominent one. This was like a styled one.
We're getting into... Well, it was enough that he could wax it.
Yes, exactly. And again, I think this is the creator just probably seeing looks on basketball players and then just putting them on the characters because it's about basketball. So maybe that was it.
I feel like the mustache had fallen out of favor in the 90s, hadn't it?
Nah, it's never completely gone, has it? It's always been around. It was the business suitable facial hair, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we are going back. We are in another age of the mustache at the moment.
I mean, the stash beard is coming into prominence.
The beard stash, but also the mustache mullet combo is pretty popular in the UK right now.
Yeah, but that was like an 80s thing as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Fuck, man. The mullets need to go. I'm sorry.
Yes. Some people can pull off mullets.
And I feel like I live in the epicenter of the mullet, being as I am going to have to blimp my postcode out. But being where I am, I live in the epicenter of mustache mullethood.
You're going to say Mustache Mountain, but mullethood is, yeah. More.
Mustache Mountain? If a mountain had a mustache, would it be right on the peak?
No, it'd be a bit before the peak. Because the peak would be like the nose, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so I suppose. Or would you be looking at the underside of the mustache because the peak of the mountain is the nose? And so it's like halfway up the mountain on the other side.
I feel like if you put a beard on a mountain, it would be just under the tip, wouldn't it? So the mustache would be like right near the tip.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. I just want to get across he was laughing at the use of the word tip.
You clocked it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So back to the manga.
Yeah, back to the manga.
And the story, I think, is something I want to get into because this, I think, is going to play into the whole manga conventions and all that kind of stuff.
It does have the rig of, I want to be the very best.
Yeah, and that's a common theme, and that's absolutely fine. I just don't know what to think about the main character. Like, for one thing, I wasn't sure what to make of the whole story and the whole like presentation.
Right?
Is it meant to be realistic in the sense of like we care about this character and their wants and desires and how they get them, or is it just meant to be funny?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a little column A, little column B.
Yeah.
So the very start of the story, basically, we find out that this guy's pretty unlucky in love. He's been rejected by 50 women and he's only 12.
Yeah. Which also, as a general manga thing, you've got a character who ostensibly looks just like one of the better looking characters.
An Adonis.
Yeah. And he's been rejected by 50 women. It's like, I don't think I'd met 50 women by the time I was like in high school.
Well, admittedly, like, I mean, going back to, again, not everyone's entry point, but a popular Western entry point into anime and manga, Brock is a pretty good looking dude. And that guy is getting turned down every time he macks on Nurse Jenny or Officer Joy.
Yeah, and I guess the common theme here is that it's not that they're bad looking, it's how they act. Because Brock back in the day was always like you'd see a guy like
yeah,
like
yeah,
eyes
Brock
bulge
definitely
out.
thought with his dick, didn't he?
And this character is obviously not very well spoken or anything. He comes across very like I'm in love with you, like that kind of. So
I also really love that because this is a shonen title, it's intended for children. And so what he wants from these women isn't anything particularly R-rated. He just wants to walk to and from school with them.
I did pick that up as quite wholesome.
Which is so wholesome. I just want to walk her home after school.
Yeah.
Like, that's so sweet.
But again,
maybe get a nori roll from 7-Eleven, you know? Like,
it's quite obviously a common thing in manga where that you are trying to get the reader in the shoes of the character, right? So you are trying to get across this sense of like, are you unlucky in love? Well, this character is. Let's see how it plays out for them, and maybe it can work out for you, kind of thing.
I mean, hopefully you're over 6 foot tall and absolutely jacked, so you can start playing basketball
and just immediately get called on. Like, well, you're in the team now. But what I don't understand is, are we meant to empathize with the character or not? Because the character is pretty unlikable.
Do you empathize with him?
No, I think he's an asshole, and I think he whines about shit he does. And then, like, he whines about the consequences of his actions.
Yes.
And I don't know. I was trying to think about this just in terms of broad fiction. You have a character that is likable or has likable traits, so you kind of root for them, or you have a character that's thoroughly unlikable, but they're fascinating in a way that you want to keep watching them.
He's about as likable as Holden Caulfield, isn't he?
Yeah, he's moaning about how unlucky in love he is, despite the fact that I said that he just walks up to women and just goes, "Ugh," and then doesn't get anything. And then he moans about like the actions of like him getting into like fights and stuff. Apparently him and his friends are like the bad guys of middle school. Like they were a gang in middle school.
Yeah, they're the gang. And I don't know if that's just a quirk of the translation, but there's a particular word that they use. It's like the hoodlums or something.
Yeah, the hooligans.
They're hooligans.
Which sounds like a name they gave themselves.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It's like, yeah, we're actually called the hooligans now. Like, so if you could call us that from now on. And the teacher's being like, eye roll, like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't care what happened to the character. That was the main thing. And like, comparing this to other manga, what little other manga we've read, I was thought of Demon Slayer. And in Demon Slayer, this character goes through a pretty horrific situation and is then put in a position where he's trying to save his little sister from this evil or whatever.
Who's casually been in a coma for a year and a half.
No, that was after that point. But by the way, she's been in a coma for 2 years. Like, buried the lead there, mate. But anyway, yeah, that character went through that. So immediately we're like rooting for this character in Demon Slayer because we're like, you know, want them to succeed because they've been through something horrible and they're trying to look out for family. This character is just like, why does anything work out for me? And then starts fights and then is mad when people don't immediately hand the world on a platter to him. Like,
he's an obnoxious little brat.
Exactly. So again, I was trying to think, why do I care about what happens to this character? At best, maybe he's like naturally talented, but that's not really an empathetic thing, is it?
No, that's not a particularly empathetic trait.
No. And I was trying to think of like anti-heroes, like characters who are meant to be disliked, but you just want to see what happens anyway.
But I suppose he's so camp and kitschy, he doesn't fit into that idea of the very stoic anti-hero, does he?
I wasn't necessarily thinking of stoicism, more as I was thinking of like talent and effort. So like the prime ones I think of, you think of like Sopranos or characters in The Wire, or more recently Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, right? And the thing about those characters is they're unlikable through their actions and their morality, but they are so competent. They are like, especially Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, you've got a character who's a master of chemistry, like one of the best in the world apparently, and is in this situation they had no hand in, and you just see them getting worse and worse. So you root for them from the start.
But I mean, Heisenberg was always a monster.
Well, yeah, exactly. But because he's so proficient in what he does, that's where you're like, he's interesting because he's like really good at what he does. And yeah, and the same with Better Call Saul. He's like a great lawyer, despite the fact that he's a ambulance chasing, you know, criminal lawyer kind of thing. But he's really good at arguing in court and stuff.
Yeah.
So this character just did not have that much for me to be like caring about what happened to him next.
You couldn't find anything to root for in him.
Exactly. If anything, I'd probably root against him, but then he just kicks off and starts fights, and it's like, I'm like his friends in the background, like, oh no, he's about to get angry. Like, oh, like I'm like that. It's like, why would I subject myself to this?
Yeah, totally.
So that was my kind of biggest issue with the story. There was a lot of like, he just jumped from want to want. Again, when there's higher stake stuff, and I keep comparing the manga I think most of is Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
With a manga like that, and even to an extent Pokemon and One Piece, they're thrust into a situation where they need to like like Demon Slayer thrust in a situation and he just needs to sort it out for the sake of his loved ones. Ash Ketchum, he's always wanted to be the best Pokemon trainer.
It's not Ash.
Oh, it's Ash. It's basically Ash.
No, it's Red. It's the protagonist from the games. It's definitely not Ash.
Ash Ketchum all. That's his full name.
Ash Ketchum.
Yeah, he wants to be the best Pokemon trainer. The One Piece guy wants to be the best pirate for whatever reason, but it is like an established, like they wanted this their entire life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas this, he's just literally going about his day, getting rejected, and then he literally gets rejected by one girl, and he's like, the love of my life just rejected me. And then he sees another girl, he goes, I'm in love with her now. Like, she's my focus. She mentions a basketball player, and he's like, basketball player, blah. And then
he hates basketball for half an issue, and then he loves it.
Beats up his friends because they mention basketball, which, again...
Yeah,
a scene like that, I was like, is this meant to be a comedy? Like, is this just meant to be funny? Because that's a funny thing, because they say words similar to basket or basketball, and he punches them for it. So if that's just for humor, fine. But then I'm like, are we meant to be, like, hooked on the story and the progression and, like, the things that happen, twists and turns? Or are we just meant to be laughing along?
Yeah.
And another thing I think I have the issue with translated stuff is humor can get lost in it. Not saying it was unfunny or bad, but I think a lot of the timing and the jokes and the dialogue related to the humor, I think that gets lost a bit in translation.
So did you clock his red hair?
Yes, so that they did a good job of mentioning that straight from the start, didn't they?
So again, red hair is historically seen as sinister, particularly in Japanese culture where it's very rare. And again, in every culture other than European culture, red hair is seen as being this like really negative trait. Probably because the first people that most of these people met with red hair were white Europeans.
Yep.
Who were coming to do some pillaging. And so, yeah, he has red hair, and that would have, to a manga audience, instantly denoted probably born under a bad sign.
Yeah, and again, a character being like quick to temper and having that as their fault that they kind of have to move past or get through. And again, maybe that's the story later on, but I feel like in 9 chapters and almost 200 pages, that I feel like I needed a little bit of like self-assessment, a bit of like, maybe I shouldn't just blow my handle and peek out on everyone like immediately.
Peek out? That's a very British expression.
He's peeking.
He's fucking peeking out, mate.
The end of this first book, it ends with him having just joined the basketball team, which he really went out of his way to achieve. Like it became his life goal in about a day. And then it gets a bit too hard. And they were trying to go for something here, which I think could have been good, which was that he was made, when he joins the basketball team, he's made to do the basics because he's never played basketball before, right?
Because he doesn't dribble at all, does he?
And he's angry at this, and that I saw as like, you could make this an interesting character thing. But then he is like, well, no, I shouldn't be able to do this because I can do these tricks and stuff. Like, he just does them immediately. And again, never played before, suddenly he can do tricks. Bit weird. But then he's angry at that, and they're like, no, you've got to wait. And he's like, actually, you know what? Fuck this, I'm out. And then I'm like, you just tried for this for so... I think it goes too quickly. I think that's the thing, is they're trying to put too much story in too quickly.
And we have this issue with episodic stuff all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
Where when you've got something that's presented to you as a full volume and was written that way, it can be a slower burn and it can have a bit more nuance. Whereas because this was smashed out weekly, every story needs to be quite contained, doesn't it?
This wasn't smashed out weekly because this was released in books, wasn't it? So like the 9 chapters was the book. Oh no, sorry, it came out in the
it came out in Shonen Jump.
Yes,
yeah. So it came out. So these first 9 issues were its first 9 weeks of existence,
right?
And again, when you're reading a Western comic, that's a year's worth nearly.
Yeah.
Whereas with these mangas, like that first 9 issues is 2 and a bit months.
Yeah. I think the ending that I'm getting as he walks out on the basketball team and then it's like, what happens next kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it resonated a little more because it was the end of that first book for us.
Yes.
And I think I was like, okay, they're trying to get you buying the next book.
It's the first arc, isn't it?
Yeah. But as a cliffhanger to get you in the next thing, it didn't help that he'd just joined the team like that day and then quit out of anger.
Also, he's the main character in a comic book called Slam Dunk. It's fair to assume he's going to join a basketball team.
Yes,
at some point very soon.
So, yeah, on the one hand, it doesn't work on that route. And on the other hand, I wasn't sympathetic to him quitting because he just joined and he expected to be like treated like a god, basically.
Yeah.
And again, the humor, there's points where he's like, I'm going to be the bloody next coach. And it's meant to be funny because he's so arrogant.
Yeah.
Like, why would a person think that? And it's played for laughs. But then when you're trying to get me to care about him quitting the team, I'm like, no, he was just an asshole. Like, it was funny, but why would I think the balance of writing to humor to everything else. This was the point I was going to make earlier where we were talking about the art, but it's more related to the story. I think there's a thing with manga where you have these artists who are mainly known for their art and their drawing, and they're being expected to write stories.
Yeah, potentially. I think that's a really fair assessment.
And I think he can plot and write a story and, like a basic story, but as soon as it tries to do anything a bit more elevated, I think that's where you're expecting someone who doesn't have that skill or hasn't shown that skill yet to then be like, right, write a nuanced showing of this character's arc and how we got care for him at this cliffhanger.
Yeah, and I suppose this is early in this guy's career, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And he had the limitations of it being a shonen title.
Yes. I do think, and I'm going to hold my hand up to this, I think there is an element of this being getting as popular as it got and so many people loving it. I think there is an element of people who just love manga and will take a lower version because of manga. And I hold my hand up because I do the same with superheroes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm not blaming people for it. I'm just identifying it in this other medium. Like from an outsider, I can be like, I recognize that when I do it.
Because admittedly, I was going into this expecting for and hoping for a really hard hitting sports story. Because I like a sports story. I like a sports movie. I like underdog works really hard and gets what he wants kind of story.
But normally the underdogs are sympathetic.
Well, and this is it, isn't it? I think, the sports movie was a very American thing. And very much like a, 80s, 90s kind of jam. And it was the underdog team working really hard and getting what they wanted. What I wanted here was Cool Runnings.
Yes.
Right?
Which is the definitive sports film.
Oh, it's such a good film, man. Really not great. It hasn't aged well, but I loved it.
Yeah, Rocky second, Cool Runnings is first.
Oh, Rocky's good as well.
Rocky's good.
Rocky's really good. I also like the Mighty Ducks.
I haven't seen Mighty Ducks, heard it's very good.
Mighty Ducks, well, I mean, it's an 80s film. Like, it's an 80s studio comedy.
And then Air Bud. Knowing the rules is say a dog can't play basketball.
I mean, Air Bud is just fantastic all the way through, isn't it? And then, like stuff like Looney Tunes did that crossover with Michael Jordan, didn't
Space
they?
Jam.
Space Jam.
Yeah.
Like, Space Jam's fantastic.
Space Jam's awesome.
And so I was kind of hoping for like a Japanese version of that, which I suppose is what this is at its core.
Yeah.
But I mean, a more sympathetic protagonist would have made this easier to swallow, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I don't know what the aim of it is. That's what I was thinking of. Like, what is the aim of the text?
Bear in mind my high claims of racism here. They're all coming from him.
Yes.
Like, he's the only person calling that guy a gorilla.
And that's the thing. If that is racist, even less sympathetic.
Right? Yeah,
maybe it's not as much in the 90s, unfortunately. But nowadays, absolutely.
Yeah, fucking A.
Yeah. The dialogue I had some issues with, because like you mentioned earlier, I don't know if this is a translation thing or not, but at the end of the day, you can only experience it how you experience it.
I can almost definitely argue for it being an issue of translation.
Yeah, and what I had was, again, I don't know if this is or not, but the example I took was the overuse of the word definitely.
Yes.
And I get what it's trying to go for. This guy's now, regardless of motivations and realism, whatever, he suddenly decided he wants to be the best basketball player in the world.
Yeah.
But he constantly uses I definitely will join the basketball team and talking like that. But then I also noticed from the female main character, who's I unfortunately can't remember any of their names.
More sympathetic.
More sympathetic, yeah, and a very stereotypical Japanese schoolgirl. Oh, I've got a crush and all
She's
that.
a manga girl, isn't she?
Yeah. And I did like the love triangle that was going on. I thought that was interesting. But then she is talking about the main character and she's like, yeah, he definitely will join the basketball team and be the best player. And I'm like, why is everyone just so suddenly like, this thing I just realized it's now absolutely going to happen?
And she is the only person who's arguing for him being a decent human being.
But then she also has I see how you really are when he gets into a fight.
And then she apologizes and thinks she's been unfair. So she's the only person who sort of sees him through these rose-tinted glasses like, oh no, I think he's a good person. And everyone else that she's conversating with about him is going, no, he's a problem. Like, he's a douchebag.
And as a reader, I'm like, yeah, listen to everyone else.
So there were some quirks of the translation that kind of threw me out of it a bit. So I couldn't tell if this had been translated into a kind of transatlantic voice.
Right.
Which bothered me. So there's a few times where the expression "oi" pops up. Oi, what you doing?
Yeah.
Oi is a very British thing.
Yes.
You won't hear an American saying oi. But then they also slipped into some American vernacular as well. So it's almost like whoever was translating this had learned English from like British and American TV shows and didn't have a strong sense of vernacular. Because, as somebody who isn't a translator, but has read a lot of translated fiction by virtue of having a fucking English degree. If you are translating from one language to another, you kind of want to pick the vernacular that you're translating into. So you'll say, right, I'm translating this out of Japanese and I'm translating it into American English. And so you stick to the American English vernacular, or you use a really, really plain English that doesn't have any vernacular in it.
Yeah.
Here, they dip into both British and American vernacular at points.
Probably not knowing there was a difference.
Well, potentially, but as a native English reader, it becomes quite jarring.
Yeah. Someone translating should have picked it up.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm a huge fan of, God, what's his fucking name? He's one of my favourite writers, and I can't remember his name because I'm getting old. I'm a big fan of Haruki Murakami.
Right.
And Jay Rubin, the bloke who translated most of his work, is an American who speaks Japanese. And so he translates into a relatively plain English leaning towards an American vernacular. But you'll never hear him use a word from the British vernacular because that would just look weird on the page. And that's what's happened here. They've sprinkled a little bit of British vernacular in, and it's made the whole thing feel really disjointed.
Yeah. And I guess if you know both, then you kind of spot it.
Absolutely. But as a native English speaker from any country, you would recognize the American vernacular.
Yeah. Manga translation probably wasn't as like high priority a role for translation back in the 90s.
No, and I don't know when this translation was done.
Yeah, I assume like soon after. I think like it's because it's a low effort thing if you think about it, like to just make extra money off. If you're a company, whatever the Shonen Jump company, you're like, let's get a translator, they'll do a quick translation, we can sell extra copies for next to nothing. So,
and I think part of the reason that when we think of manga conventions, we generally think of shonen stuff is because they were the primary people punting their stuff out for the Western market back in the day.
Yeah, and they definitely have created the manga house style, or like the shonen house style has become manga essentially because of how popular.
I mean, I think when we do Musashi, which I really want to do a follow-up on this writer and just go, by the way, this is where he got to. He got to these really elevated heights with this really fantastic art, this really great writing. He really broke out of that in his later career.
Yeah.
And there is amazing stuff happening in Japanese comics that is outside of that shonen house style in the same way that there's amazing stuff happening in the West that's outside of the DC Marvel house style.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at here is that
the main one.
Yeah, those weekly shonen titles that then got translated and punted out for the Western market.
Yeah. I remembered that I had some screenshots where I was just going to share with you, which I just thought were funny. One was, should have done this in the arting, but
we can go back.
Yeah. But the Dragon Ball Z reference, which is the word horrible said by the main character's crush, hitting him like the Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z, which I thought it was very well drawn.
Or like a Hadouken from Street Fighter.
Yeah.
More close to a Hadouken.
I took an example of the text, so the bubble where I didn't know who was saying it.
Yeah.
Now in that it's obvious, that alone it's obvious because that's just the one character and the speech bubble. But in the one right before, you see she's talking to someone. I didn't know if the person she was talking to was saying the revelation that the captain was the brother.
So what Ryan's referring to is floating speech bubbles with no indication as to Western comics will tend to put a little arrow almost to the mouth.
And most manga will as well.
Yeah. And so, and that, yeah, I clocked that as well. The one thing I do want to talk about is the really interesting heterodox panel layout here.
Yeah, I thought that's a very manga thing, isn't it?
Well, we didn't really see much of it in Demon Slayer or Pokemon Adventures.
Yeah.
So in our experience, in our limited experience of the manga we've talked about here on the podcast, it is quite heterodox.
I think I had a harder time noticing anything like that because I was so tuning into the right to left thing.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I didn't have like much of like a ability to see how I was scanning.
So there's lots of grids of 4 with a little inset panel in the center.
Yeah.
Which is unusual. You don't really see that a lot in comic books, do you? I mean, I thought that was quite interesting. I love the fact that we talked about the splash panels. There is a lot of them. It's really dense with them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in a Western comic book, you're lucky if you get one good splash panel per issue. Whereas here, you're getting 3 or 4 per chapter, and they're all fantastic, but they're only a third.
Yeah.
They're a central third. So the splash panels that we're seeing here aren't a full page. They're a central third of the page. Which, again, I thought looked really good. Because you had sort of 2 panels spanning half the page on top, 2 panels spanning half the page on the bottom, and then this big central splash panel in the middle that kind of catches your eye when you turn over to it.
Yeah.
I thought it looked really great, and it kind of kept your eye moving around the comic a lot.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things that we've been talking about panel layout a lot, and I think since we did the Cheers and Jeers episode, I've been thinking about it even more. And really, for me, good panel layout is about how it directs your eye when you turn a page.
Yeah, I think it's a very fine balance because it has to, for me, it has to direct your eye in an interesting way, but it doesn't break the scan of the story.
I think it's one thing that Logan v Predator did quite well.
Yeah,
actually.
that was a good one, yeah.
In retrospect, we kind of panned that comic book, but in retrospect, it did that really well.
It melded the fight scenes with in a very easily to scan way, wasn't it?
Yeah, and again, the action here is dealt with really well.
Yeah. But
because again, like,
I think the action stands up more because of how good a single image is.
Yes.
So there's not as much flow of movement.
Yeah.
But the one image you get of it is so good and so expression laden, and like you only need the one image because it's so good.
Because it's so rich.
Yeah.
And again, I'd be really interested now to look at a Western sports comic because I bet they exist. I mean, we've kind of done that with Do a Powerbomb.
Yep.
I would kind of argue to some degree that was a sports comic.
King of sports, some say.
You and the other weirdos.
Me and some other thousands.
The unwashed.
1,000 other wrestling fans. We're not as bad as the anime fans, come on.
Well, no, but there is a larger redneck.
Yeah, it's redneck ballet.
It's redneck ballet. Is that a thing?
I think it's a thing about like modern fans. You might get some like old fans who are like, no, it's tough and it's manly. And
I'm not a fucking redneck.
Yeah, but modern fans who are less and less redneck, they're more like hipster wrestling fans. But they're like it's extremely physical theater. And at the end of the day, most wrestlers these days, they are all nerds and specifically theater nerds who just got jacked and became wrestlers.
Totally.
Like, because they like the costumes and the pageantry of the entrance.
Wrestling. Fuck.
You opened Pandora's box.
I did, yeah. Now I can't. Now all that's left in there is hope. Pandora's box reference for anyone. But no, because I bet there would be like football comics.
Yeah, probably.
British produced.
There are WWE comics.
Oh, fuck you.
We've done Powerbomb. It's fine. We've done the good one.
You get one a year. You get one a year, Ryan. We'll do one wrestling comic a year.
I hope the guy who did Powerbomb does another one because that was writer and drawer.
Writer and art drawer.
Drawer artist. I mean,
it's
in
been
wrestling,
a long week, guys.
Wrestlers draw. The good ones draw, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I unfortunately I do, yeah.
Here's another panel that I made a note of just because the specific wording I thought was a bit indicative. And this isn't so much a translation thing because it's one speech bubble.
Yes.
So there's one speech where the main character does something. He does some trick or something. No, that's it. So he does this weird guarding thing, right? And that's how he beats the captain to like get into the team. And he does a thing where he guards, whether this is a basketball thing or not. Yeah, but he's moving so fast that he's covering the entire space. So one of the bystanders who's watching says, that's the special skill that only people with unlimited strength and explosiveness can do. And then someone else goes, that's godlike. So that, regardless of translation, that is a exposition dump within one speech bubble. But that's a very manga thing, and I don't think that's a translation thing where it's like a character has to point out why this thing that just happened is so amazing.
It reminds me of the full sort of 2 or 3 pages in Demon Slayer where they describe that he is smelling where his sword needs to go.
Yeah, but even at least in that was like a slow enough situation where someone could say, oh, that is amazing because you did this or this or whatever. Like they're telling another character. This is someone in a basketball stands. I'll read it again exactly. But that's someone in the basketball stands, like rooting for like a mid basketball game going, that's a special skill that only people with unlimited strength and explosiveness can do. Like,
bear in mind that sentiment in Japanese could probably be expressed with like 3 kanji.
Yeah, and maybe it is a translation thing. Then.
Yeah, I mean, Japanese is a very dense language with a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
And so that could be dealt with in a handful of words and a few kanji on the page.
Yeah.
And again, I think Japanese does come across as a bit stilted and a bit wordy when translated into English because the just the nuances of the 2 languages.
And speaking of nuanced language, I also took a screenshot of this.
I did clock that. Again, he looks quite African-American there.
And for listeners, it's the captain character who the basketballs have just been shined and cleaned by the main character, and he's holding 2 basketballs and he just says, these balls. Which again, I think was played for humor. So,
well, I mean, it's funny, isn't it?
It is funny. I also took again, coming back to wrestling, I took a photo of the one character drop kicking another, and it looks amazing.
It's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, because you can tell. The only reason I looked at that, I went, that's a drop kick, and then I second guessed myself because I was like, why would they put a drop kick in a 90s manga? Like that's a 90s wrestling thing. Like that's sure as shit not a basketball thing. As far as I think you get disqualified for doing something like that on the court.
Basketball is famously not that much of a contact sport.
No, exactly. So, but I appreciated the drawing. He could have done bloody do a powerbomb.
Yeah.
This drawer could do a really good wrestling comic.
Given how proliferated across Japan pro wrestling is now, I bet there are some Japanese... I bet there's a wrestling manga. Do you think that might be a fun entry point into manga for us?
I mean, we've had several entry points. It'll be another stop on the road.
Man, I just want to get to the point that when we review manga, we can do so with a little bit more knowledge and a bit more of a straight face. Because whenever we talk about manga on the podcast, I think it's fair to say we do get a bit bogged down into translation issues and, you know, how styles and all this is shown and this isn't. And we're kind of groping in the dark a little bit as reviewers because we don't know as much about it. And so I just really would like to expose ourselves to a bit more of it so that when we do end up talking about it, we can get into it a bit better.
I would say I think there is value in our perspective of being people who are enthusiastic about it, but without having the relevant knowledge. In the same way that we do superhero stuff and you don't know about it, or we might do historical stuff and I don't know about it. And obviously
apparently
it's one...
I don't know about it either.
But yeah, I think there's value in us kind of critiquing it from just the experiences that we have and saying like, how would you find this as a story? Because again, Demon Slayer, I really enjoyed, and I might keep reading if I have the time because I'm still catching up on superhero stuff. But Demon Slayer is one that I made a note of to be like, this is where I am now if I want to jump back in. I'm probably not going to do that with this.
No, I mean, I probably won't read much more of it.
So again, I think our issues with this, again, it's from the 90s. It's like, it's very of its time in a lot of ways, especially stylistically. So...
Can you edit in that bloke from TikTok who talks into a vocoder and goes, it was the 90s? Do you know the guy?
No. You might have to send me the link and I'll pop it in.
Because he's funny.
Yeah. I also took a picture of what I think is one of the funniest, you know, the meme of like when they in the film say the name of the film and like the Leo meme where he's like, like that. I took a picture of one because it was the main character going, in case you'd forgotten what this title is called, the main character going, damn it, I really want to slam dunk. All you need to do is to let me slam dunk. And it's like, and again, especially in the 90s, and I think if there's no translation for slam dunk, which there may or may not be, I don't know, but even in the 90s, like in American parlance, it was dunking. You just dunk.
Yeah.
It's not slam dunk every time.
I mean, it was such a feature of the American parlance that you could refer to yourself as dunking on somebody.
Exactly, yeah.
And like conversationally, you could dunk on somebody, couldn't you?
And that was back in the 90s. So, yeah, that was just an interesting little, again, like, over-expositional.
I imagine that'll be one of those things that has, like, gaijin English, gaijin Japanese.
Yeah.
Do you know about loanwords in Japanese?
No, not at all.
they will just Nipponify English words. So,
like Napoleon.
if the microphone wasn't sensitive enough there, that was a big sigh from
and
Jaden.
an eye roll. The eye roll was important.
So, would you like to know the Japanese? I can explain it to you really quickly. Would you like to know the Japanese for hamburger?
Yes, but I'll time you. Go on.
Hamburgeru.
Oh, yeah.
That's the Japanese for hamburger. They just use the English word, but pronounce it. They basically just use Japanese pronunciation rules for all the phonetic sounds.
Spanish is hamburguesa. So again, it's very close.
Can you say that again for me?
Hamburguesa.
Can you make it more Spanish? Hamburguesa.
Is a lisp Spanish?
The lispy S sound. Like chorizo is actually chorizo.
I say it how the Duolingo people say it, because that's all the reference I have, and the way they say it is hamburguesa. So
that was better.
Yeah, and the only reason I know that cadence is from The Boy. For some reason, his I remember most of all, but he does like the yo soy un hombre. It's like, I am a man.
I remember him saying un garçon.
Yeah,
because I learned a different language to you via Duolingo.
Yes, and they're all the same basically. So once you know Latin, you know all the European languages.
All of those Latin speakers that are still kicking about.
Yeah, they know all the European languages because they're all the roots language and all that.
I think I could probably argue that people who speak Latin know a lot of Anglo languages, not because of the Latin, but because they've been very expensively educated.
Yeah, probably that as well.
You don't get fucking Latin in high school, mate. You're gonna have to bleep that one out as well.
Yes. Or do you just retake it? You don't get Latin around these parts.
You don't get Latin around here, boy. Well, I imagine in Langley you do.
In where?
Langley.
Oh, right.
The fat-off private school in the countryside that all the posh kids go to.
Do you want to leave that in as well?
Yeah, fuck it.
Okay.
Like, it's not the actual school that we went to, so...
We couldn't afford that.
No, our parents couldn't. We didn't have Langley money.
No. I got one more nitpick of the story. Oh, sorry, two more nitpicks.
Oh, God.
One was, and again, this just I thought was a bit weird, the revelation that the main character has made it into the basketball team.
Yes.
So like a big plot point.
So like right at the start, like kind of mid-issue 9.
Yeah, like really been working towards it the whole time. So I remember it's the end of chapter 8, and the only reason I remember that is because it ends with the female main character telling his mates that he made it in.
Yeah.
And that was the revelation. And then it just cuts to main character is joining the team. I thought that was so weird because like surely in kind of traditional storytelling, the main character who has been working towards this goal would be there for the revelation. Like it's imagine Harry Potter not being in the room when he finds out he's going to Hogwarts.
I mean, John wasn't there when we found out he was actually Aegon Targaryen.
No, but that was going to be my other point is unless there's a contextual reason for them not being there.
Yeah, I suppose. But there's not a lot of context here in general, is there?
Well, that's this is an example of a wider problem, I suppose. But again, this is assigning good story writing to someone who is primarily an artist.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's it. The other one I thought was very expositional, and this isn't a translation thing. It was the two characters, so the main character and his enemy, basically. The guy who's like maybe taller than him or not.
Luke.
Yeah, the cool, like too cool to care kind of character.
The guy who gets his nap disturbed, he's just sleeping on the roof.
Which also I thought was a very stereotypical manga thing that I saw in Attack on Titan. There's a character there, what's his name? Lee something? I can't remember his name. But he's like too cool to care, but also amazing at the thing that the manga is about. But they have met and they speak first and then they get into a fight later or whatever. But it says in the manga, it explicitly says as narration, it says, this is the first time these two characters meet and they will be enemies from now on.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's like, you're literally telling, not showing. You're literally,
yes, I also noticed that.
That is like, what I'm trying to think of the Game of Thrones comparison. Like, I don't know, Eddard Stark being like, and he would be sad about this and probably won't be around for very long to be sad about it. Like,
the only time that is acceptable is as an epilogue. So at the end of the film, everything cuts to black and it's a biopic about real people and they say, Bill Gates went on to, found Apple.
We're not showing it anything else.
Bill Gates went on to found Apple.
Yeah, why not?
That's just one of many inaccuracies that our historical correspondents can pick up on in this episode.
But that's more recent, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, that's definitely like and then this is going to happen. It's like, what, just show the thing. Like, if you want people, like, I get, like, they could have at least been, if they were trying to, like, hook people in, they could have been a bit more, like, they could have been a bit more subtle, I guess. Just plainly being like, and they're going to be enemies for the rest of the manga. Like, I thought that was a bit weird.
So, I think that's a good place.
I think that's we've covered it pretty much.
So there's one more point of business I would like to do, and that is a YouTube comment. It's a very comment-heavy episode this week, and this is a comment on a recent short that I just want to give this person a shout out because their comment made my day. So I had to translate this to English via the native YouTube app because it was in a foreign language which I can't identify. So the comment reads, "Brother, I can create a short from the Bye podcast, but there are no views. There is no AUR. There is no subscriber gain. There is some help, please do." So to whoever that guy is, we don't know what we're doing either.
No, just throw shit at the wall until something sticks.
Absolutely. So good luck with that one.
Yeah.
We also we got an actually like quite engaged comment on the short that landed today as well.
Yep, we did. Just kind of getting across they enjoyed the comic that the short was about, which I appreciated.
So it said, "It's a really good one-off story seeing Spidey and his villains old." And you know what? I disagree with you, Tombo_91, but thank you for writing in.
It was good seeing those characters old. It just unfortunately was not a well-written or drawn comic to depict that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For anyone wondering, it was Spider-Man Reign, and it was the short that came out very recently, which was basically about how Mary Jane got offed by Spider-Man's radioactive semen.
Yeah.
So not a great story in terms of plots and revelations, and
we'll cover it at some point.
Yeah, we'll do it. We will have a Spider-Man episode coming up very soon because the Madam Web film is coming out. And
we'll have to do more fucking Spider-Man.
So I was going to present this as options. Either we do a really bad one because the Madam Web film is meant to be horrific, or we do similar to what we did with Batman and Superman, and we do a original first appearance versus modern day.
Yeah, you pick.
All right. It's going to be one of those two. You'll see when the episode comes out.
Is this next week?
Not next week. That's 2 weeks.
What are we doing next week? Well, we're announcing it now, aren't we?
We
what
are
we
announcing
doing next week?
I think next week we hadn't actually agreed on this. We kind of had.
Well, now you're fucking talking about it on air. We're going to have to do it.
We're doing it now. It's Thor. It's Immortal Thor.
Oh yeah, fine. We'll do Immortal Thor. Yeah.
By Al Ewing of the Immortal Hulk fame, at least for me personally.
We've talked about the first issue, haven't we?
Yes, we did the first issue. It was good. So hopefully there's another 4 or 5 after that.
Cool. So we'll do. So next week, tune in next week for Immortal Thor.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening. It's a real pleasure to have you here with us. We make shorts. They go on YouTube and TikTok. I really like them. I don't see them until Ryan has edited and released them. I look forward to them every week. I think you will too. Comic Glitter and Podcast, TikTok or YouTube, wherever you get your short form content from.
I say the shorts basically are like, look how I edited you to look this week.
If you want to get a shout out on the podcast, literally all you need to do is leave a review or a comment somewhere. I love reading them out. It brings me joy.
5-star.
Yeah, 5-star review, but you can say whatever you want and I will read it on air.
Yeah. Even better if it's personally offensive to who we are as people.
Absolutely. So do that. Go and do that. This is your one call to action for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening and good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.